Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting, the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment for May the 4th. Do you have an item you wish to speak to? You might, actually, since it's just us, we'll just show of hands. If you have a cell phone, you might want to silence that now. Our first order of business today is to receive the minutes from our last meeting.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to receive the minutes for the April 20th, 2017 meeting of the Board of Adjustment. Would you cast your votes, please? And we've received them. Requests for continuance or withdrawal?
We have one request by the applicant for item number 3, case number 14350, to withdraw that case.
Do we have to actually vote on that? No? Okay. Yes, so we're ready for public hearings.
Item number 1, case number 14349, request of Dana Adams for a variance to the 25-foot side yard setback and a minimum 5-acre lot size in the AA Agricultural District located at 6802 St. Bernard.
Is the applicant present? Would you come forward, please? Give us your name and address for the record and tell us about your application.
He can walk up there with you.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Dana Adams. I filed a variance for 6802 St. Bernard for a mobile home. What else did you need? I'm sorry.
So you're aware that the property is actually not large enough to meet the code requirements for the placement of a mobile home?
I am now, yes, ma'am.
And our staff report does not reflect at least one of the conditions or requirements for the issuance of variance, and that is a statement of hardship that would be caused by the enforcement of the ordinance.
The hardship answers to the questions?
Yes.
It would be a hardship if it wasn't granted. I really didn't know how to answer the questions. I had someone break those down to me so that I can understand them to answer them. If you could, please break that question down for me.
Pull your microphone down for me, please, just a little bit. Well, in order for the variance to be granted to the enforcement of an ordinance, you have to demonstrate that the application of the ordinance to this particular piece of property would create an unnecessary hardship, and that those conditions are peculiar to this particular piece of property, that if the relief that you seek the variance is granted, it wouldn't cause any substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purposes of the ordinance itself or the comprehensive plan. And that if it were granted, it would be the minimum necessary to alleviate the hardship. So the question really is, I guess, sort of several-fold. You know, what is it about this particular piece of property and or your situation that would indicate that the ordinance shouldn't be applied to you just like it applies to everyone else?
Well, in the area, there's more than one mobile home in the neighborhood. There's 3 or 4 mobile homes in the neighborhood. My mobile home is set back in guidelines with the other homes on the block, so that it wouldn't cause any major conflict or any major issues with the neighborhood.
I don't think that it's the fact that the home is a mobile home per se, but in order to place a mobile home on property that's zoned AA, you have to have 5 acres of land you have less than 1 acre of land.
Yes, ma'am. I didn't know at the time that you had to have 5 acres in order to put a mobile home. I was informed when I was told to apply for the variance that you had to have 5 acres or apply for a variance.
Ma'am, am I correct that there are other mobile homes in the area that are on less than 5 acres? Is that correct?
Yes, sir, there is.
So this wouldn't be out of the ordinary for that area, is that correct?
That is correct.
This would be your primary residence, is that right, ma'am?
That is correct.
Do you, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I would move approval of the variance.
I would note also that there is a letter of protest on this application. Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Ray Padoba, and I live at 7000 St. Bernard Street. And I brought 2 handouts. They're not lengthy. Can I submit those?
Sure. And what's the nature of your concern about the application?
I have several concerns about the application. I believe it does not fulfill 3 out of the 4 requirements. The first requirement being the hardship. I believe the hardship has been a self-inflicted hardship, and it's not due to the zoning. This property was purchased at a tax auction, and it's been in agricultural use for several years. There's been cattle, my neighbor's cattle are on it. And he showed up at the auction to purchase that property, but he was outbid when the price of the property got way beyond what you would pay for agricultural property. And so you had an advantage because if you were going to put a house there, you can pay a lot more for the lot than if you were going to use it for agricultural. So he stopped bidding, and the lot was sold. The house has already been placed on the property, and the variance has not been granted. And I also suspect the septic tank and the water well have also been already placed on the property because I've seen those trucks out there. As far as requirement C, the variance absolutely would impair the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. It's a huge variance. This acre is 0.7 of an acre, and the requirement is 5 acres. If you look at your map I prepared, the property is in yellow requesting the variance, and I'm the house on the top right corner is my residence. Out there's no city water, no natural gas available, and you have to have a septic system. So having a water well on this small of a lot is going to drain water from the surrounding lots, and you can see there are a few other smaller houses down there, and their water wells are going to be competing with each other. And they'll also be required to have a propane tank to heat their house and a septic system, and on a lot that small, that takes up a lot of space. So they're not going to have space for agriculture after they put the house, the septic system, the water well, and the propane tank. I believe that this will be an eyesore because cars will be parked in the front lawn. There's no room for a garage, and you can't put a driveway to get behind the house because there's not enough room on the side of the house to put in a driveway to get behind the house, so the cars will be parked in the front yard on the lawn. I believe this will result in decreased home values on the street, including my home. The lot has already been assessed for cleaning, and the bill is overdue. That's the second item I presented to you from the county treasurer's site. And that bill is already overdue, and no one's even living there yet, so things like that are obviously going to affect your neighborhood value. And also, as far as city services, increasing the density in the agricultural area It will further strain Northeast Oklahoma City, the police, the fire, the traffic. The schools are not designed for increased density. And I also believe requirement D is not satisfied because there is no unnecessary hardship, which goes back to my first points. So I thank you for hearing me, and please deny the variance because it does not meet 3 out of 4 requirements.
Thank you.
What was your last name, sir?
Podoba, P-O-D-O-B-A.
I have just a couple of questions. How many finished driveways do you have on that street and the adjacent street? And how
Finished
many of them-
driveways?
Yes.
By finished, do you mean like gravel or concrete or, well, my driveway is finished. The one across from the proposed one, that's a gravel one. That house burnt down last week. It's no longer there. And the one directly to the south of it, that does have a little driveway. That one's not a mobile home, that's a regular house. And all the other mobile homes in the area are much larger acreages than this proposed one is.
But some of them are smaller than the 5 acres, is that correct? And some
Yes,
of them
there are a
aren't.
few. The one directly across the street is 5 acres, I believe. The one to the left of that is 5 acres, I believe. The one right to the south is 2.5 acres. That's not a mobile home, that's a regular home. And then the one right to the south of that is also a mobile home, and I believe they have 2.5 acres, which is double the size of this lot.
Now, how many of these houses that you've been describing have garages that are being used?
Have garages?
Garages that are being used?
Okay. The one across the street has no garage. They park behind the house. You can see the driveway where it looped around there. So they parked their cars behind the house, but it burnt down now, so that one's going to be gone. The one directly to the south of me, I just can't recall if it has a garage or not, to be honest. I don't want to make something up. And the one below that is a mobile home, and you can see it's got a carport off to the left side. You can see the gray roof there. You have any further questions for me, anybody?
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anybody else who wants to be heard on this matter today? Members of the board?
I'd renew my motion.
Before that, could I just have Dawn explain the circumstances out in that particular area with regard to zoning and annexation and the house, the size of the lots? I think are on the screen.
Well, this lot was brought into the city in this configuration. That's the reason. You have a lot of properties out there that are less than 5 acres, but they were annexed into Oklahoma City with less than 5 acres and brought in as agricultural. So most of them can get deed approval because they're in that configuration prior to 1977 and allows it to have deed approval. But it doesn't allow for a mobile home. The mobile home still has to have 5 acres. We do have 3 properties out there that have mobile homes that do not have 5 acres. We've got them listed up here on the map. They're larger properties than this one, but they're less than 5 acres.
And those all existed prior to annexation as well? Or they just are not in compliance?
Could be either one. I don't know exactly which, but they're out there, and all the properties are less than 5 acres, the ones that are in the red.
But the applicant could build a house there, is that correct?
The applicant could build a house. A house would be allowed there. Also, because it is less than an acre of land, it is required to have a hard surface drive. Anything 1 acre or less is required to have hard surface. If it's over an acre, it's not required to.
I can't support this application. I think at best it's a rezoning case and not a variance case. I wouldn't speculate as to what the odds are of getting it rezoned, but I think that this is too small and particularly too narrow a piece of property, but too small a piece of property for the placement of a mobile home. Anybody else?
It's a real dilemma because I did go out there, and when you look around, it didn't have, over the driveway or whatever, but it seemed to be, it was a decent-looking mobile home. I mean, as far as that's concerned. There were other areas, the houses just down the street, people had their cars parked on the grass. Can you hear me? Okay. And then there are these other areas, because it was an annexation, it presents itself, it becomes peculiar, I think, because of the annexation issue, and this deed was, what was the date of the deed on that? Anyway, it goes back. So there's a dilemma. There's it's really difficult to really know. I do think that they present, I don't know about the hardship issue. She would have to address further how she acquired and what went on and how it got to that location and some of the other things, which I've not heard from the applicant. But basically, it's not out of line with some of the contiguous properties nearby on that street or the intersecting street.
Except that it's much smaller.
Yeah, but there are a couple of others that were, what was the other smaller one?
Well, the other three that had mobile homes on them, they were all over 2 or 3 acres. They were less than 5, but they were, this property is less than 3/4 of an acre.
Yeah, it really is too small.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? So it fails because I don't have a second?
I'll make a motion to deny the application.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to deny the application. Case number 14349. Cast your votes, please. It is denied.
Item number 2, case number 14353, request of Kevin and Janet Whitley for a variance to the side yard setback, height of an accessory structure not being located behind the rear wall of the main structure and taking access from a rural arterial street when access is available from a local street in the R1 single-family residential district located at 4309 South Westminster Road.
Could you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Name and address is Kevin Whitley, 4309 South Westminster Road.
Tiff that up so it matches your height a little better, if you will. You won't have to bend over. Tell us about your application.
Okay, the reason being that I have to put it up by the house is because of the 6-foot drop. As you can see, how much dirt you would have to put if it was behind the structure of the house. But we already have approved 16-foot walls for the motor home to go into the garage there that we're trying to build, and it will be acceptable for my mother-in-law to get out of the house with her little motor thing, and she's handicapped, to come around, and it'll be 6 foot, 6 foot from the house, so away from the house. So the reason I have to do that is because the variance of the ground level is matches the house and stuff, and you'd have to put way too much dirt in there to lift it up to where you guys want it.
So this project has kind of taken on a life of its own for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've been doing it since the 2015, and we had to have it cut down, and that took a while, and then we had to have more plans, and it's just been taking a while. We need to get it put up. We can.
Let me ask, is there anybody else who wishes to be heard on this matter today? No? Members of the board?
I do not remember this case,
I don't either.
which may sound crazy, but I'm a little surprised by that. I don't remember. When you came in the first time, you didn't need a variance for things like, I mean, because on your permit, you would have submitted,
Right.
you got the variance back for the height of the wall, so you had to have had the building placed on the lot per your plans, right?
Right.
But they didn't tell you at that time that you needed a variance to the side yard setback, or that the structure you were presenting wasn't behind the rear wall? None of that was brought up?
No, the reason why it was taking so long is because we had to take it back to the factory and have it cut down. So that took like,
Because the walls were too tall?
no. We had to have, the original building was a 112 pitch roof. So you guys required a 412 pitch roof. And it was 30 foot wide. And that was going to go over the 25 from your neighbor's fence, okay? So we had to cut it up to 27 to try and stay in the 25 away from your neighbors.
John, why don't you help him out?
Okay, on the original application, he showed the building behind the rear wall, and it met the side yard setback. It just did not meet the height on those metal walls, and that's what he came here to get the variance for. When he came back, he was needing to move it up to the side of the house, and then he also realized that once he puts the 412 pitch on the building, it was going to go over the height of the house by about 3 feet. When you move it to the side of the house, there's not enough room to be 6 feet from the house and 25 feet from the side yard setback, so that became another variance. And being that he'd already been back one time before, I made sure we found everything we could, and that's the reason I put in there on the driveway, because he does front a local street, so technically he should take his access off the local street.
When you say front, though, his residence is actually oriented toward
His residence is oriented facing Westminster Road, but it is an arterial, rural arterial, and the code states that if you front a local street, which this one does, Westminster Way, you're supposed to take access off of the local street. He already has a drive that comes off of Westminster Road that's been out there for years and years.
What happened was, you guys got your plan, the building people came out to put it on the ground and figured out they were going to have to level up and create a retaining wall for your pad to sit on, and that's when
Right.
you kind of figured those things out.
And the 6-foot drop, and that, I've already spent probably $2,000 on dirt, this for that plot right there. So I'd have to really build it up another 6 feet to put it back to where you guys want it, behind the wall of the backyard. So.
Do you have a motion? Further discussion?
I'll make a mercy motion to approve the application. It's, you've been through the ringer, and I know that you've been diligent and tried very hard to do the right thing to get your variance approved. I'm going to move approval of the application.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve case number 14353. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
Thank you.
Don't take this the wrong way, but we hope we don't see you back here again. Item number 3 has been withdrawn. Additional items, no. Communications and reports. We have something that our municipal counselor wants to tell us.
We do. I am passing out copies of an ordinance that was recently adopted by City Council regarding driveway variances. There had been an issue with some older areas of the city, that single-family neighborhoods that were built without the driveway standards that comply with current zoning standards. So the council decided that the best way to approach this was on a case-by-case basis. And a lot of these neighborhoods, the $1,200 application fee is quite a burden. So the application fee has been reduced to $100 for driveway variances.
So you're telling us they're making work for us? I see, okay. This is why we care.
I think that seems like a great, a great ordinance to alter, because that is an excessive fee for something like that. So I agree with Councilman McAtee.
Anything else? Anybody else?
One question. I already have the permit. Is that going to pertain, do I have to go get another one?
I don't believe you have a permit where it's showing the building at that location.
I have to go back and get another permit?
You have to go back and change your plan, show it on the plan.
Okay.
Not going to charge you for another permit, but you need to change the plan.
Okay, so we need to go over there and check.
It'll be 10 days when we give you the board order, and then you can go do that.
Okay. That sounds wonderful.
You're very welcome.
There's no more discussion. I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. Cast your votes, please. We're adjourned.